Welcome to today's episode of Mike's Place. We are going to do, I believe it's abuse. So we'll learn about some abuse, different types of abuse, sorry. And when I went through the content, I noticed that there's a lot of not really things missing, but the parts that seem like they would go to this that are missing, they kind of fit in with violence, and like violence is a separate topic from abuse. So, abuse definitions: one is use something to bad effect or for a bad purpose, misuse to use wrongly. And that's just abusing, meaning if you overuse something or you use something for its unintended purpose, like pouring floor cleaner on somebody's face or in their eyes, like that's not its intended purpose. So that would be abuse of the chemical. And abuse on a person too, and some battery and criminal charges, I'm sure. Number two, treat a person or an animal with cruelty or violence, especially regularly or repeatedly, to mistreat, and that's basically like mistreating another person or an animal. That could be by physical violence or withholding food or water or something from them. Number three says to insult or revile, abuse. I guess it's in the sense of, and these are all, if you were to take these definitions and use them in a sentence, the word abuse would be being used as a verb to mean these meanings. But a lot of times, some of these words have the same meaning. So, like, you might see these under verb, repeated under noun, even though the word's being used as a different part of speech. It still has the same meaning, but in the sentence, it's just a different part of speech, is all. So, three is to insult or revile, abuse, and that's like spewing verbal insults at somebody or something. You're abusing them, calling them names, or criticizing them in some way. Under noun, we have number one, the improper use of something, wrong use, and that's pretty much like the same thing up here as number one, just using something in the wrong way. I know these are probably confusing for some people if you don't know the parts of speech, but basically, in the sentence with a noun, it would be like abuse would be the topic, it would be the noun, it would be a thing. So it'd be like abuse of your younger brother is wrong. So you're using the word abuse like a noun. And then up here, abuse would be a verb. You would be saying like my dad does abuse my brother because my brother always acts out with violence towards him. So, and then it would be used as a verb in the sentence, which is an action. So the improper use of something, wrong use, that's abuse. Cruel or violent treatment of a person or animal, mistreat, and as you can see, like number two up here is the same. So it's the same meaning, even though you use the word different in the sentence. Number three, a corrupt practice. Yeah, abuse of power. That could come in many forms, like law enforcement, instead of following their rules and regulations, the officers themselves just start doing whatever they want to do. So that would be corrupt practice, abuse of law enforcement. Number four says insulting language, which is like the same as to insult or revile. You're spewing verbal assaults at them. And VT is verb transitive, and I don't really exactly remember what it means, but under verb transitive we had abused and abusing, and this abused itself would fall under verb as well, past tense verb. So abusing verb transitive. That might more describe the transition where it's not really. It is a verb, but it's being used in a way that makes it seem like something else. Under adjective, you have abusive. That would be like you describe somebody. Like my mom is abusive, my dad is abusive, my brother is abusive, and you're just using the word to modify a noun or yeah, it has to be a noun because if it was another part of speech, it'd be an adverb. And abused. See, now you have abused being used as a verb and the adjective. You can have an abused dog, meaning you're using the word as an adjective, or you could say the dog abused the cat by attacking it, so then it's being used as a verb. So that's all that means. It just refers to how the word is used in the sentence. Even though a lot of times the word just has the same meaning, even though it's used as a different part of speech in the sentence. So, abuse, a pattern of behavior used by one person to gain and maintain power and control over another. Abuse comes in many forms and has many faces, in person and online, but we will focus on abuse in relationships between individuals and society. So, abuse is when someone causes physical or psychological stress to someone else. And I went ahead and just put this as two main topics there, being physical abuse and psychological abuse, and then I kind of categorized the other stuff, broke it down, and put it under those two. If you look online, like, not everybody does that. I have no idea what the actual format for this is, but that was how my brain sees the information. That was how I thought it was easiest to break it apart and teach it to other people. So I have physical abuse, which attacks the body, and then I have the psychological abuse, which attacks the mind. So you're either attacking the body or the mind in one form or another to cause abuse. Abuse is when someone causes physical or psychological stress to someone else. It can happen in any relationship, like a romantic relationship or friendship, or among family members. Hate crimes directed at people come in the form of abuse. Continued untreated abuse eventually leads to violence or domestic violence. Two types of abuse exist and include several overlapping forms within the two. The two main types are physical abuse and psychological abuse. These types of abuse can be used by individuals against other individuals or against groups within society. Society can abuse the individual or groups within society, and groups can abuse each other. The two main types of abuse are listed below. I remember I had I should have pulled that in, I don't remember where I left it, but I had like the list of the different scenarios of like adult abuse to adult abuse to a child abuse to adult, and all that. I should have brought that list back over here, but I don't remember where I left it. So, but that would also go under it. It would go under the information I placed it under. One of the other topics, it also goes under this. So for physical abuse can be readily recognized and is tangible, meaning that you can like touch it or see it physically, which may result in serious permanent injury or death. So, choking, throwing objects, use of size to intimidate, use of weapons, angry or threatening gestures, stalking, destroying possessions, hitting abdomen when pregnant, shaking, burning, pinching, throwing, beating, and other actions that attack the body and leave marks or pain. So those are considered physical abuses. Some of these probably weren't supposed to end up in this list. The intimidation and threatening gestures. I guess they could be considered physical if the person is like using body motions, physical body motions to intimidate. So it falls under physical and under psychological, because you can cause psychological trauma also by threatening or intimidating, especially using weapons. So we have now under the physical abuse, basically you can look at this and see that these are forms of battery. So battery is defined as touch or strike. So under physical abuse, you have battery, which is when somebody touches or strikes you, and basically your your confrontation goes from intimidation, where the person is standing in your personal space, to is when they touch you. When they touch you, it becomes battery, because battery is defined as touch or strike. So that's where the line gets drawn. The next one is sexual abuse and rape. Sexual abuse and rape can be forced sexual behavior with abuser or other people. That's just saying like the person could be forcing sex with themselves, or they could be forcing you to do it with another person or other people. Unwelcome or unpleasant acts of sexual nature, marital rape, rape during sleep, or incest. Physical abuse can take place before, during, or after sex. It could be inflicted upon any person regardless of sex, violent sex, rape, uninvited touching, incest, forced sex with others. This includes any type of sexual contact between an adult and anyone younger than 18, or between a significantly older child and a younger child. Signs include bruises around genitals or breasts, unexplained sexually transmitted diseases, bleeding from anus or sex organs, torn or blood-stained underclothing, and reports of rape or assault. And so we have sexual abuse and the many different forms that this can look like. And so you have, it's physical because there's contact, and they also included contact between anyone younger than 18, or between a significantly older child and a younger child. And that is under the law, they have it classified as a form of rape, usually, if there's an older person involved with somebody that's underage. The reason it's rape is because of, I guess you would call it persuasive influence. The older person obviously has the ability to influence the younger person, so, and the younger person doesn't understand all the different types of manipulation and influence, so it's rape. And they're also a child, and they're not really supposed to have sex or have children because their bodies aren't developed enough. Number 2, these were physical abuse. The next ones are going to be psychological abuse. And under psychological abuse, we have emotional, verbal, psychological abuse. I could have worded this a little different and probably put attacking the mind versus the body or something. So emotional, verbal, and psychological abuse involves making threats, stalking, verbal put-downs, humiliation, shaming, lack of respect, intimidation, withholding communication or intimacy, isolation, name-calling, invasion of privacy, constant criticism, pressure tactics, lying, yelling, refusing medical care or controlling medication, or withholding information. And these are, like I said before, these attacks are designed to attack the mind. Their purpose is to intimidate and control, and there doesn't have to be any kind of physical contact for this abuse to happen. This abuse just, it goes on, and it's usually just words or yelling. They have the withholding communication or intimacy, and that's like the one person giving the other the silent treatment, or Um, One person starts using sex as a weapon, like they withhold sex and they use it to manipulate the other person. So these are real things that people do. Um, Isolating people, obviously, that I mean that could be there could be some physical aspect to that if they touched you or pushed you, but most of the times it's they just don't pay for your um, say like they just won't pay for the anything for you to have friends or to go do anything, so they kind of like isolate you by withholding money from you, which is also down here withholding information, but you could also say withholding money if it's a situation where there's people share money or they share accounts or something like that. um, Controlling somebody's medication, definitely it's definitely psychological abuse. There's a little more. It kind of goes on to the side of physical abuse if the person has medication that is like they have to have or something like that. Withholding information. That's one of the ones that probably is used more than the others. People are just like, yeah, if I just don't tell them that, they'll never know. But so it's a form of abuse to do that to your partners or to your family or like even your coworkers at work, your employees, whatever. Economic abuse, society abuse, exploitation. These are under psychological abuses. Economic abuse, society abuse, exploitation is not allowing your partner or spouse participation in legal or financial matters. Now, this could be in most of this information. It does refer to the like a couple, like a couple in a relation, a loving relationship, I guess you would say, and almost all of the information applies to not only your um, couple relationships, but relationships you have like outside of, um, I guess you would say like a love relationship. So this could also be economic abuse by not allowing your coworkers or your shareholders to participate in legal or financial matters. So you could also read it that way. Not allowing your partner or spouse participation in legal or financial matters, withholding funds, credit cards, etc., as a matter of control, like controlling them by not allowing them to have money to do anything. If it's a situation where one person depends on the other for money, it becomes abuse. So controlling all the money, withholding family money. I guess that would be like if the family gives them funding, you withhold it from your family, like your wife. Like if you're a guy and your family gives you money and you withhold that from the wife or you don't tell the wife about it, like it's a form of abuse. Some relationships that they're probably not really focused on sharing money, so that might not be as important. Both families might be sending both husband and wife money, so it's just one of those things where it's like could be this scenario, could not be this scenario. Withholding family money, not contributing to expenses, that would definitely suck. And it would be economic abuse against your partner, making them pay for everything. Hiding money or accounts, yeah, probably. I mean, if you're hiding it, you're definitely probably doing something you shouldn't be doing or withholding information. And stealing. Stealing is definitely exploitation and economic abuse. Depending on what you're stealing, it could be a more extreme form of economic abuse too. This can be done with or without physical violence and may be designed to prevent the victim from going to work or out in public. Yeah, basically trying to like withhold money to allow them to go and hang out, or if they depend on you for expenses for like their clothing and you don't buy them new clothes and they have like really nasty old ripped up stained clothes, then yeah, you're kind of preventing them from going out in public by treating them like dirt. And I have uncommon forms of abuse, and I was going to pull this list in to put in here, but the list was like really, really long, so I decided to just add this link that goes over to the wiki page for abuse, and then basically that whole section is nothing but different forms of abuse. It gets pretty crazy too, because there's like you can have forms of religion abuse where people are using their religious knowledge as a weapon against other people. The situations could turn where it's a spouse using one religion against another, like using their knowledge, like, oh well, like we do it this way, you guys are doing this, that doesn't even make sense that you guys do it that way. So like my way's right and yours isn't, and it's right here in my religious documents. So you can't actually click this link because I don't have this information posted up, but you can just Google abuse and find the wiki page, and then it's literally loaded with uncommon forms of abuse that happen. There's some really, really strange stuff too. Much stranger than the one I just shared. So abuse happens. The use of abuse can become an addictive weakness for the abuser and the abused. Much of the time, the abuser has self-esteem problems or is insecure in some way. The actions of the abuser and the abused trigger a reaction, which can result in violence. And the reaction, like we learned with response and reaction, is instead of thinking through the situation, you just keep redoing what was done in the past. In this situation that they're talking about, it'd be this abuser hitting the other person. Sometimes they hit other people because they don't really like themselves. They have low self-esteem. They don't think very highly of themselves. They're insecure. You could have many forms of insecurity. They could have physical problems with their bodies that cause insecurities. Like me, like I'm kind of insecure about going out and doing anything because my legs and my back are messed up, and I don't want to get hurt on accident by falling down or something like that. So the actions of the abuser and the abused trigger a reaction. The reaction is just basically the abuse happening again and the abuser allowing it to happen again. And yeah, usually there is violence because this abuser already is upset about something, and they probably don't have respect for this other person, which is why they've been placed in the role of abuser. Once they start using abusive tactics, they pretty much just like lose respect for the other person, and it usually does result in violence of some sort. The violence could be physical violence, or it could be like subtle violence where it's not noticeable or not seen. One person or the other is not 100% at fault, but each person is 100% responsible for their actions, and the situation should be judged accordingly. So, why does one person abuse another? There are many reasons why abuse happens, but here are 6 main reasons to keep in mind. Abuse happens, 1, to get control. The desire is to gain control over anything or anyone near. Right, so sometimes abuse does work to get control. You're probably not gonna keep control though, because like once everyone knows what's going on and you're exposed, like you're not gonna keep your position there, whatever you've done. So the desire is to gain control over anything or anyone. Abuse happens to retain power and control. A lack of power and control in some parts of life can lead to gaining or retaining power and control over another in order to compensate for loss of control in other areas. Yeah, definitely. If this person just has a habit of being an abuser and they're losing control over some of the situations, maybe their wife is leaving them or something, so they start to try to use their abusive tactics against another woman that they met, maybe, or another man that they met, if it's an opposite scenario. um So, a lack of power and control in some parts of life can lead to gaining or retaining power and control over another in order to compensate for loss of control in other areas. Um, yeah, and I guess until you understand that you're committing all these acts of abuse, you will just kind of jump from one scenario to another and keep doing the same thing. And when you lose control over one area, you jump to the other and try to take control through aggressive and abusive tactics. So it could be possible, might not be, but could be. Abuse happens 3 to gain what is wanted by aggressive behavior. We learn to repeat aggressive behaviors, which results in getting the results we want. Yeah, basically, if your parents taught you to use violence or abusive tactics to get what you want, you're probably just gonna keep doing that later on in life. You just may be a person that has learned to use certain tactics against other people to get what you want. You yell at them or you demand things from them. You belittle them and put them down by calling them names or something like that. So this is what you learned, and this is the tactic that you use to get what you want. Eventually, these people that you do this to, they don't want to be around you anymore. So, abuse happens by reacting to past events that bring up inordinate or excessive amounts of anger. Our controlled reactions to a current event presents itself as uncontrolled anger, which is a reflex to a trigger that is similar to a past event. Yeah, I guess this is saying like you're in a current situation, and this current situation is very similar to a past event that was really traumatic, or it's something that was out of control and caused you a lot of stress. And when you get into this new situation, you automatically react with the same actions. You don't really think it through and think, hey man, this is a lot like what I went through back when I was a kid, and I don't want this happening again, so I'm gonna just like kind of chill out and get up out of here before things get a little crazy. It is kind of a reflex, and like these are some of these like things we were taught that we don't really realize that we were taught them, and then when the scenarios come up, we don't really think it through and we just react in the same way. It's hard to even acknowledge these and start fixing them until you know they exist. So you gotta kind of start to become aware that they're there in order to deal with them and bring them out in the open. Abuse happens, number 5, to satisfy a subconscious need to release or vent inner hostility or anger. We may not know it, but our behavior provides the satisfaction of that need. And I'm not really sure where they're going with this, but I know that like people can annoy me so much that I totally forget. I totally just disregard their well-being or their emotions in the situation, and violence becomes entertaining and fun to me. Like, I know that's not cool, but that's what happens. That's the best way to describe this. It's like you vent your inner hostility or anger, but you're venting it in a way that you're just letting go and just like enjoying hurting other people. basically. So we don't really want to do that. We want to make sure that our anger isn't hurting other people, even if it does make us feel good, because like sometimes you can be just in such a stressed out mood and situation that it starts to like become fun to act out with violence and rage. So maybe if you're in a mosh pit, that's all right, but you don't really want to do that with you like at your grandparents' cookout or something like that. Abuse happens, number 6, to repeat what we know. If our view of relationships is distorted by the way we grew up and watched relationships happen, then we will most likely repeat what we know because of our training. That's just reinforcing this subconscious reflex that these two things we're talking about here. And if you don't know, or you were taught that relationships should be a certain way by watching other people, and like this might be you were watching some of your family members that were a little older than you, brothers or sisters, and you maybe you saw them hanging out and having fun, but you also saw them drinking and burning each other with cigarettes, or like fighting after they were drinking or something like that. So if you watch that, like that's what you were taught, and then that's what you'll repeat. You'll just be disrespectful and rude and fight with your partner because that's what you saw and that's what you know how to do. Not always, but like when you're taught something, you have a high likelihood of repeating it later on, unless you understand it and you know not to do that because you understand that you act this way whenever you get upset or you have too much fun or something. So in the family environment leading to abuse, people do not want to admit personally or publicly that they have any failings as a family. When abusive behavior occurs within the family, it is like a boil that will fester and erupt. How does abuse continue in the family structure? When put downs are constant from one person to another, name calling is the rule rather than the exception. If abuse passes from one generation to the next, it continues. By not discussing the problem, lack of communication multiplies the damage. When one person has high expectations of another and will punish them for not meeting those expectations. This is just pointing out that in an abusive family, as long as the members each keep acting out with their selfish behaviors, there's no way to change any of that and make the abuse stop because nobody really cares. And there's usually one person that's an abuser, and they do attack the other person with like put downs or name calling or something like that. It could be a takes two to tango thing, but a lot of times there's one. Maybe the one person's not the aggressor, but they're the ones that will control everything once everything starts kicking off and getting fired up. So definitely not doing these things, like harassing other people, calling them names and stuff, is definitely gonna cause less abuses and less fights. And not discussing the problem, yeah, that's a really big problem, because a lot of times you have to get things out in the open and talk about them to work through them, maybe work through them and figure out the problem and figure out a solution to the problem or something like that. What can happen to the abused? They can accept responsibility for the abuse, blame themselves, use self-destructiveness, attempt suicide or commit self-mutilation. A sense of helplessness can occur, or they can develop low self-esteem and turn to alcohol and drugs and drug abuse. This could be this can happen to the abuser or the abused. Honestly, it could be more likely some of these destructive habits happen to the abused, and some of them happen more to the abuser. In this or this I guess this would be a paragraph. In this paragraph, it's just saying what happens to the abused. They can blame themselves and accept responsibility, even though it's not their fault. They're not really doing anything. They just are like, yeah, well, I did kind of like say that a little bit rude, and that's why he hit me. And so, um, blaming yourself and accepting responsibility when it's not your fault. Use self-destructiveness, and that would come in the form of like maybe hurting yourself or overdosing or trying to commit suicide or something. So and a sense of helplessness can occur, most definitely, because that's probably the intended goal of the abuser, is to make you feel helpless and in need, so that you have to depend on them. Makes them feel very powerful. They have people following them around, depending on them. A sense of helplessness can occur, or they can develop low self esteem and turn to alcohol and drug abuse. The abuser probably has a higher chance of turning to alcohol and drug abuse. Either that, or that, I mean, that could be the reason why they're an abuser, too. The effects that abuse and violence can have on children include physical abuse. All these are physical abuse. I'm not even sure why that ended up there. Broken bones, concussions, burns, bruises, black eyes, welts, lacerations, rope marks, cuts, punctures, overdose, and murder. Emotional abuses can lead to frustration, depression, terror, shame, anger, self-blame. Psychological abuses lead to resentment, self-pity, embarrassment and shame, hypertension, headaches, and stress. So those are basically your the outward reflection of physical abuse, emotional abuse, and psychological abuse. They result in different expressions by the person that's being abused. Obviously, if they're receiving physical abuse, they have these physical signs. If they're receiving emotional abuses, um, depression can come from anywhere, though. So depression could be a sign. Terror, shame, anger, self-blame. Definitely, this person is being um, controlled and made to blame themselves, and made to feel shameful, and made to feel afraid to talk out or do anything. Um, your psychological abuses lead to resentment, self pity, embarrassment, and shame, hypertension, headaches, and stress. And these are all just probably outward signs of brain stresses, like you're thinking too hard, or the situations are just like really, really bad that you have to think through. Eventually, hostility and anger erupt, causing the child to become moody, irritable, isolated. They may change friends or standards. Signs of neglect include dehydration, malnutrition, bad hygiene, untreated health problems, unsafe living conditions, or unsanitary or unclean living conditions. The signs of self neglect are similar to the signs of neglect caused by others. Um, yeah, because I added this little note just saying that the person being abused can self neglect, and it would look like all this here, and they can be neglected by another person and they would still have all this, possibly some of it, whatever, not all of it, but some of it. So you wouldn't be able to tell if they are doing it to themselves or somebody else is doing it to them. But you would be able to tell that there are signs that this person is being neglected and abused by how they act, or how they look, or how they smell, something like that. How they act towards other people. Some of the effects that The partner and parents' experience may include neglect of themselves, loss of trust, blame of others, and display of jealousy. They may bribe or become argumentative or make threats, but they usually don't follow up on the actions. Isolation may occur where they become socially withdrawn or have a loss of support, both emotionally and financially. So they may become socially withdrawn or have a loss of support, both emotionally and financially. And they may leave or divorce or turn to drugs and alcohol. They may blame themselves, doubt their love, or suffer a fear of losing their minds. Signs of exploitation will include changes in banking practices, adding people to the account, unauthorized withdrawal of funds, unpaid bills, disappearance of possessions, forged signatures, transfers of large sums of money to family or friends, reports of exploitation. One partner may leave the other in public places or desert them. So these are effects the partner or parents experience. They might neglect themselves. I guess this would be the partner that's. This could be either or, the abuser or the abused, I guess. Some of the effects that the partner and parents experience may include neglect of themselves, loss of trust, blame of others, and display of jealousy. Yeah, it's more likely the abused that will experience these things, but it could also be the abuser experiencing them. This is probably the abused here doing this. They may bribe or become argumentative or make threats, but they usually don't follow up on the actions. Isolation may occur where they become socially withdrawn or have a loss of support, both emotionally and financially. Yeah, they could isolate themselves and lose their employment, or their spouse not help them anymore, or something like that. They may leave or divorce or turn to drugs and alcohol. They may blame themselves, doubt their love. This is more just like the abuser blaming themselves and taking out that blame on themselves in one form or another. If I wrote down these signs of exploitation because if a person's being abused, but they're not being abused with signs of like physical trauma or emotional trauma or psychological trauma, there's still this financial abuse that could be happening. Somebody could just be like asking them for money or using them or something like that. So I added that in just as a way to see that there could be these financial, economic abuses going on. They might not have any physical signs unless somebody looks deeper into it. So abuse happens every day all over the world. To end abuse and stop the cycle of abuse, we must understand what it is and how to overcome it. Abuse destroys families and people with no regard for sex, age, or race. Right, and the only way to really overcome the abuse in your family is for people to learn what it is, learn what it looks like, and then learn strategies of dealing with anger so they don't act out with abuse again. It's a little bit of work. It's not a lot of work. It's a little bit though. And abuse it destroys family and people. It has no regard for sex, age, or race. It doesn't care if you are single, a couple. It doesn't care if you're straight or gay. It's there for everyone. It's an open ticket if you want it. 12 signs you're in an emotionally abusive relationship. So these are going to focus more on the couple relationship, I guess you would say, but again, all this applies to all relationships. So like number 1 says you tiptoe around your abuser. if this abuser was your boss at work, then you would be saying that you're tiptoeing around your boss. But in the scenarios, it refers to like a partner from a couple. So you're never sure of his or her moods, and they can switch so suddenly from warm and fun to cold and distant. When they're in a good mood, you can relax, but never entirely, as you never know when the next storm might blow in. And the storm is scary or exhausting. Right. So just basically saying that you're not comfortable around your abuser, and you never know if they're going to yell at you or try to hit you, so you tiptoe around them. It doesn't have to necessarily be tiptoe. Tiptoe is more like a description for just being careful around them, not to upset them. And if you feel that way, then obviously this person is abusing you. They're trying to control you through fear, which is why you're going through with this being very careful not to upset the abuser. Number 2, you say, I'm sorry excessively. Sometimes you're not sure what you did wrong, but you apologize anyway. It's easier to keep the peace. Take extra note if you do this more than you used to. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that one, because like I apologize for stuff all the time, and I think it's because I have nerve damage, and it's just like automatic. Who knows? In this sense, they're saying that if your abuser is causing you to constantly apologize for stuff, it may be a like one of those physical signs that you're able to see that you're in an abusive relationship, because these are 12 signs you're in an emotionally abusive relationship. Number 3 is you're reluctant to call out your abuser. Even when what you have to say is valid, you tend to clam up. Your abuser is a master gaslighter. He or she will cleverly twist the circumstances to put the blame on you. So then you doubt yourself. Was I wrong for raising this? Yeah, right. I don't know if you're really calling out your abuser. This might be the situation where you're just trying to bring up a topic and discuss it, and this person just automatically twists everything back to make it seem like it's your fault. This could be like you bring up, maybe you're talking about like we had a fight last weekend. Do you remember? And then the abuser's like, oh yeah, I remember. I remember what you said to me that caused me to slap you. And but technically, like, you weren't really doing anything wrong. You weren't really being rude. This person just, every time you say this to them, they act out in this way. And it would just be a sign that you're being abused, because this other person is constantly putting the blame on you. It's your fault I hit you. It's your fault that I ran into your car in the garage, or something like that. Number 4, you're frequently told you overreact. When you're not overreacting, you could still be overreacting. It's happened so often, you struggle to tell the difference. Basically, this abuser has caused you so much psychological stress that you don't really know what to think anymore. And this is the person going through like the psychological stress that makes him question everything. Am I overreacting? He says I'm overreacting. Am I overreacting? I probably am. Maybe I should just calm down. Like you act that way because this person's trained you to be that way by abusing you, constantly shoving rude comments down your throat or criticizing you or something like that. Number 5, this is 12 signs you're in an emotionally abusive relationship. Number 5, your abuser brushes off their own poor behavior. For example, it was just a bit of fun. Time got away from me. You know what I'm like when I'm with my work colleagues. You're making too much of this. Ha ha ha, no big deal. This is just them laughing off their abusive behavior, making a joke about it like it's not serious and they don't really care that your feelings were hurt. Definitely a sign that this person is not only an abuser, but they have no interest in changing their behavior because their actions are basically like putting the blame on you. So they haven't even come to the realization of that they're the problem yet. They're still blaming you. Number 7, you've lost confidence generally. You've often second guessed your own thoughts and actions. You don't feel as confident in other areas of your life as you used to. Um, in the sense of being emotionally abused, I guess this would be one of the outward reflections of the emotional abuse. You don't have a lot of confidence in anything that you're doing or anything that other people are doing. This could just be because somebody's constantly told you that you're a failure and that you don't know what you're doing, you suck at what you're doing, or something like that. Number 8, for 12 signs you're in an emotionally abusive relationship. You find yourself excusing your abuser's poor behavior. You wonder if they are depressed or have a personality disorder or are the product of a difficult family background. These things may be true, but that doesn't give them a leave pass to treat you poorly. That doesn't mean they can treat you poorly, especially when it keeps happening over a long time. You still have to consider what it's like for you to be in a relationship with them. Um, this could be. This is definitely a sign. This one might be a little bit harder to see because it's like subconscious. You're just excusing this person's behavior. Oh, they work a lot, so it's okay if he hits me. He does do labor. He does do a type of labor for his position. So if he gets mad and he doesn't like the food and he throws it at me when he gets home, I understand because he works really hard. But like it's their behavior is unacceptable. So and you're accepting it and allowing it basically. Like you're basically allowing it and not only allowing it, but you're telling them that it's okay. Hey, it's okay for you to be like this. Like you can throw the food back at me if you don't like it. You can throw the plate at me if you want. Number 9, your abuser often changes plans on you and others. These changes come suddenly and will be spun to look like it's fun or exciting for you, but in reality, it's anxiety provoking. It's also a means of controlling you, of keeping you standing on shifting sand. This might be a tactic that abusers use. I was never. This doesn't sound like anything that I've ever done. I'm not sure what the tactic would be. Maybe you're just ruining this other person's personal plans by constantly making plans for them to go with you and then changing those plans over and over again so that they can't really make their own plans around what you're doing. I guess it could be anxiety provoking if it's constantly going on and then you're constantly being put in situations that you don't really like, or like maybe it's your partnership time together and they're always doing what they think is fun but you think is boring and it sucks. So it's definitely a way of controlling you, and it could definitely be a sign that this person's an abuser if they're constantly doing this, constantly changing your plans, and then telling you that they want to do this one thing and then changing to go do something else that they want to do when the original thing was something that you might have wanted to do or something like that. So this could definitely be an outward reflection that this person is a type of abuser, and they just keep changing everything on you over and over again to keep you confused and lost and not knowing what's going on. So number 10, for 12 signs you're in an emotionally abusive relationship. Your abuser is secretive. Your abuser is very protective of their phone. They'll disappear without telling you where they're going. And when they go out or away, you're never entirely sure of what they're doing and who with. On the other hand, they want to know exactly what you're up to, who you're with, and what time you'll be home. Yeah, like definitely, this person is like wanting to be in your personal information a little too much, and they're hiding theirs. And I think that anytime people like hide their stuff from you, it's they're probably doing something wrong. And a lot of times, like just from me personally, I'll be like, "Hey, can I look through your phone?" And you can tell like instantly by the reaction right then, like if they're doing something wrong. No, I don't want you touching my phone. Yeah, I don't care. I don't have anything in there. Like if you ask me that, I'd be like, whatever. I don't have anything in there. Don't erase any of my stuff or mess with my stuff. But I'm not hiding anything. I could care less who does on my phone. I don't have porn. I don't look at anything like that, so I ain't worried about that. This is a weird one. Like in a relationship, I kind of always want to know where my partner's at and what they're doing and who they're with. So I don't really know if that's. I would say that if this other person was hiding these things from me, that I would be the abused, even though I'm asking this information. That's my perspective. But with my perspective, I also like to say that I see both sides of the situation. There's no like one side to anything. Number 11, you're not sure what's normal in a relationship. You're not happy and relaxed in your relationship. You have a feeling the erratic way your abuser treats you isn't right, but you don't know what goes on for other couples. You can't exactly ask around. Maybe this is normal. Yeah, this could happen to somebody who's never been in more than one relationship or hasn't dated much, or I could see someone's family shoving them into a relationship like this, and they don't really know anything about what other people do. And if this abuser treats you poorly and then isolates you, then you're never gonna know what other couples do unless like you watch television or learn on your own by reading or something. Um, what's normal in one relationship isn't always normal in all relationships. Like I hear really strange things that people do in their relationships, and I'm like, that is not for me. So I don't want that around me. Number 12, you keep telling yourself you love them, and you probably do, but loving someone doesn't mean it's okay for them to treat you badly, and loving someone doesn't mean you have to stay with them at all costs. Yeah, that's just basically like you can love people from afar. It's harder to do with maybe your partner if you, especially if like you're a family or you've been together for a long time. But I kind of feel this way about my family. Like I love my family, but I don't really like living with them. I kind of want to love them from a distance because it's just better that way for me. That's going to be it for the topic of abuse. Thank you for joining me on Mike's Place, and see you next time. Give me a thumbs up if you like the content, and share it with your friends and family. And definitely share it with friends and family, because this is like really good stuff. I put a little bit of time into collecting it all up to share. But that's it. Bye. Have a wonderful day.